Hi, everybody. Welcome tonight to the Emily Crocker Ask Mr. D session. I'm so excited to have her here. I've loved working with her music throughout the years, and I'm honored that she's here. We just met a few moments ago for the first time. I'm going to talk a little bit here before we get her in and introduce her to wait for a few more people to arrive. Assessment season is over. You survived. And I hope everybody did great. I hope you learned a lot and that your students learned. For me, what assessment season was and is all about was the learning. So you did it, you showed up, you got the feedback, and you grow, and so do your students, and that's the value. It's not about the scores, it's about growing and getting better. Hopefully they got to hear some great choirs and maybe some that were not so great. It's all helpful to the learning, and as we learn through the pandemic, there's nothing like the feeling of being in a room with people who've been working the way you've been working toward a common goal, making beautiful music, choral music, and encouraging more people to sing. If you are using S-Cubed Sight Singing Program, I'd love to see your videos. I'd love to get them. Just email them to me at inthemiddleofhistory@gmail.com. I love seeing the work that you're doing with that program. I watch teachers. They ask me to watch them teaching sometime. I'll set up a Zoom and watch your class and watch you do it and give you feedback. I made a vow in 1989, my first year teaching music when I was 3. I was failing terribly, and I made a vow that if I ever figured it out, I'd figure out a way to share what I was doing that was working. And so that work continues. Every month since last month, we had Roger Emerson here. It was great. He shared some of his tips for teaching this age group. Having Emily tonight. Christy Carey Miller will be here in May. Greg Gilpin will be here in June. And in July, I'm going to host a middle school teacher that you probably have never heard of, that you should hear about, because she's one of the most amazing middle school teachers that I've ever seen. Seriously, I was blown away by her work. I was adjudicating out of state, and it was just amazing. And we're going to let her share what she's doing. And then in August, I'm going to have Jody Koch, the choir queen. And we're going to ask her what she's doing that's working. More Zooms to come. I want to feature people who you want to see, people who are doing great work, composers who've been around for a long time, and some that maybe have not been around as long, but who are doing stuff that is working in your classroom. I'm going to share a QR code here if you want to take a photo of it. Let me see if I can get that to work really quick. That QR code will take you to many things that every time I do one of these events, I do specials on my TPT store, and they're in there tonight. And then I also teach on a platform called OutSchool, and I'm teaching sight singing there. It's a virtual platform for anybody in the world to be on. I'm teaching musical theater things there, teaching LGBTQ classes there, teaching so much on there. I'm having a great time, and I'd love to be able to teach more students on that platform. So these things that are these specials tonight will last until 10 p.m. And the big announcement that I have regarding S-Cubed, which I've been posting about, is that I finally have the Google Slide version. A lot of you have been asking about that. So in my TPT store, with that QR code there, I have lesson 1 for free until 10. I have also another lesson for free called the first month of middle school choir. I shared my day-to-day experience for a month as I set the structure and laid the foundation for a solid year. And I talked into the camera and gave you all the information. So that's free until 10. And then also I have the Google Slide version of level 1 of S-Cubed available. It's normally $269. It's $99 until 10 p.m. So if you already have S-Cubed, you don't need to purchase any of that. If you want the Google Slide version, you just email me and say, I want the Google Slide version, and I will send you David Call's version. I'm not sure if I can send you the other version or not, but they're just as good. It's just his looks a little bit different. And without further ado, the reason that you're here tonight is to meet Emily Holt Crocker, who I am so excited to have here. Her work has been amazing, is amazing, still is amazing. She taught public school music at all levels for 15 years in Texas. In 1989, she joined Hal Leonard, becoming vice president of choral publications in 2000. And she retired in 2017 after 29 years. She was founder and director of the Milwaukee Children's Choir from 1994 until 2009, and named Director Emeritus in 2019, and was founder director of the Vocal Arts Academy from 2009 until 2015. As a composer, Ms. Crocker's works have been performed worldwide, and she's well known for her work in developing choral instructional materials. She now resides in Fort Worth, Texas, where she composes and is a supporter of the arts. And without further ado, we welcome Emily Crocker. So let's get her on the camera. There we go. I'm asking her to start that, and hopefully that happens. Can't wait to see you, Emily. You got it? There we go.
I didn't know that I was,
There she is.
unmuting myself. So
That's okay. It's so nice to have you here. So thankful for your expertise, for you giving your time. And I want to say to you, like, you have many wonderful arrangements, obviously, that are used that I've been hearing at adjudications, that I love, that I'd never heard before. But the one that I used the most in my classroom was the one Drunken Sailor, 2-part. And it was great for my 6th graders in terms of teaching choral technique, dynamics, all of those things. That's the one that I used probably 30 years straight. So thank you for that wonderful contribution and so much more. And thanks for being here.
thank you. Well, I should say about Drunken Sailor, that was actually my very first published work.
Wow, I didn't know
Yes,
that.
it was. I was teaching general music in elementary school, and I kind of had an unruly group of 5th and 6th graders, as sometimes we have, and but for some reason I could stand behind the piano and play boom chuck boom chuck boom chuck boom chuck, and they would sing as rowdily as possible. What shall we do with a drunken sailor? And they seemed to like love that. So I had a choir, and they said, "Well, could let's sing Drunken Sailor in our choir?" And I said, "Oh, well, we can't possibly sing that for choir because it's not an arrangement. You know, we need it to be in 2 parts, and it needs to, you know." They said, "Well, make it in 2 parts." And so for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I kind of worked my way through it, writing a verse a week. And those of you who've done it know that it has some little gimmicks in it, like it has a clap, and it has a stomp, and it has well, first of all, it's just kind of fun to sing because it's got lots of words. So we went to a little festival, and lo and behold, we got first place, best in class. And
Wow.
so after that was all over with, I I decided, I said, well, and the judges seemed to like the arrangement. So I decided I would send it to the publisher. And it took a long time before I heard from them, but they did accept it. Now, as I was telling you before the Zoom, these days it's still maybe one of my best selling pieces, but these days there's a little controversy about it because they don't like us to sing, don't want to sing about drunkenness. So I was on my Facebook page, and I have a little parody I wrote of it, which you can certainly use. And it's what shall we do with a Dunkin' Donut? What shall we do with a Dunkin' Donut? And then, uh, hooray for Dunkin' Donuts. Cover them in chocolate till they shimmer, and dip it in milk and take a big bite. So,
That is perfect. And I was telling you earlier right before we started today, that I've been called Dunkin' Donuts my whole life, so I love that one. I wish I'd found that earlier. I neglected to thank our co-host Alden Wagaman, who has graciously, repeatedly agreed to keep us safe in these Zooms, because I still have PTSD from the 2020-2021 Zooms, and I want to make sure everybody's safe and has a good time. So thank you. Alden is from Indiana, first-year teacher, and I really appreciate it. So let's jump into some questions. We'll answer a few questions. We'll answer all of your questions if you put them in the Zoom, and then you can ask them live after we have a little conversation here with Emily. I want to ask you, what is your approach to music literacy?
well, of course, Dale and I are kindred spirits about music literacy. To me, it's really the main thing, and I will tell you that I was not very good at it at first.
Me either.
My first years of teaching middle school, I was just not good at it. I tried. I gave them things to read, but in Texas, you may know or may not know that we have this UIL contest, and part of that is a sight reading component. And my students, they tried really hard, and they did pretty well on stage with their concert music. But we went to the sight reading room, and they pretty much mumbled through the song, and I was, I didn't know what to do. I was just devastated. My principal was there even, and I
Mm.
was, anyway, we got back to the school, and these sweet kids, they just said, "Well, why did we do so bad?" And I said, "Well, we have to learn, step by step how to sight read." And they sort of looked at me with a puzzled look, and it was, "Well, can't you teach us?"
Exactly.
And I thought, well, I should be able to. So that at that point in the year, it was April, and I said, okay, we have no pressure on us now. We're not going to any more contests. I'm going to kind of dig in and see kind of what works and what doesn't work. And so I found I actually started with, some of you know, the little um, what are those books? Little Oxford books, little Oxford sight singing books. They're little tiny books, and I would pick exercises out of that, and step by step I learned how to do it. Um, and just I'll just tell you, the main secret is to separate the rhythm from the pitch. Do
Mhm.
the rhythm first, then identify the pitch, and then gradually put those together. And so that's what I learned. And so by the end of the year, they were sight reading unison melodies fairly well. And when the seventh graders came back the next year as eighth graders, it was not a struggle. It was, oh, this is just what we do. And so that was a big step for me. Now, I did get into writing music for sight reading because I had a wonderful editor, Joyce Eilers, who some of you know or
Yes.
remember. She's passed away now, but she um, she wanted to write a method, and so we together wrote patterns of sound, and that was our first method. And over the years, I we wrote two couple of volumes of that, and some other things. I've recently done a new method, which is a little bit of a update of patterns of sound. It's called Sound Patterns, and it it basically follows a specific sequence where you introduce a musical concept, whether that be, you know, bar lines, measures, repeats, pitches, intervals, whatever they are. There's a very specific order of the concepts, and then everything you introduce then is practiced in unison exercises and then incorporated into a little original song. It was important to Joyce and important to me that we connect our sight reading to actual music so that it's not this thing that we do that's separate from our other music. It's just part of the whole thing. And I found that the students really responded to that. They looked forward to it. They found success in it. And and here's the thing: when when students are successful, they want to do it. They
Exactly right.
success is its own reward.
It is. And, there are so many ways to teach sight singing, definitely, and they all work as long as you do them. You just have to find the one that clicks for you, and use it, because if it clicks for you, you're going to be successful. I mean, even S Cube, just successful sight singing. That's what I came up
Yeah,
with when I did
right,
it.
right. Well,
Because,
I will say that
well,
the there's been some research done, and the two factors that affect success in sight reading the most are number one, the amount of time that you devote to sight singing in each lesson,
Mhm.
and number two, the attitude of the teacher.
Absolutely. And they have to love how they're teaching it to the kids, and that's what's going to make the difference for the kids. And I want to, before we leave this topic and move on to the next one, I remember the moment that I knew I had to share my way of doing it. I was at an adjudication here in Georgia. Our standard is very, very high, like Texas. And except we don't have to audiate. I think you guys audiate there. I don't know if it's required, but that's even harder. And I watched the teacher come out of the room after my kids had gotten straight superior sight singing and they nailed it to the wall. And that teacher was just so downtrodden, and her students were so downtrodden the way you described, that I was like, I've got to figure out how to get my way into somebody's hands. So let's talk about the changing voice. So how do you write for the changing voice? What advice do you give to teachers who struggle with the changing voice, students who drop the octave? If you're working in a beginning, intermediate setting, just tell us your thoughts about that.
Well, I had I had sort of the big when I started teaching middle school. I sort of had the big general mixed chorus. 60 kids. The boys were all over the place, and it was pretty much a disaster.
Yeah.
So the very next year I split my choirs into tenor bass and treble, and and it seemed to work better. They seemed to focus better. But a big part of that was as part of my learning experience. I took the course with John Cooksey. He used to travel around and give summer classes. So I took the John Cooksey class. He was a expert in the changing voice, and I sort of learning how to classify voices and how to work with them, and how to place them in a choir rehearsal. Now, long story short, it basically works out if you have whether you have a mixed choir or whether you have a so-called tenor bass choir, which is really sort of a cambiata to new baritone choir. You're going to have voices that are unchanged. You're going to have voices that are changing, and you're going to have voices that are newly changed. And they don't have very many notes in common. So you have to sing in parts from the very beginning. All right. So your unchanged or your cambiata voices are not going to have a lot in common with your new baritones. So you got to sing in two parts, at least.
Yeah.
Um, as part of this process, we spend a lot of time working, and Henry, you'll see Henry Leck does this, working the head voice or falsetto voice. So we would explore our voices and do sirens and do and I would get them to eventually find that third space C. And so even the new baritones are going to find that third space C. They're going to in our warm up. We're going to gradually work that down in a warm up. 5 notes down and gradually move down the scale. I did that every would do that every single day, and we just talked about, okay, well, you may have a big crack in somewhere in that middle of your voice. It's okay, and
Mhm.
you learn techniques to help them minimize that. One of which is to when you feel like you're getting to that range when you're singing on ooh, close your lips. When your lips are a little smaller, it's going to protect that passaggio. And there's a book, I don't have it here in front of me, that Hal Leonard just published called um, Warm Ups for the Adolescent Singer. It's a wonderful book by a guy who's a real expert with this. But if you do this top down warm up with your guys, and you can do it in mixed choirs too, because the girls obviously are going to be able to sing that third space C. They love to hear the guys sing, and I tell them, okay, when you get to the bottom of your range, stop singing and sit down. Pretty soon there's, two guys standing. Pretty soon there's one guy standing, and everybody he gets the applause, and everybody likes that.
That's
Henry
fun.
Henry Leck also has a video that demonstrates this. So it's what you focus the on the developing the voice in the warm up, and it's a big. It will take the whole year. But
Yeah.
let me tell you, by the time a seventh grade boy goes through the year doing this, he's going to have a beautiful light tenor or baritone voice in eighth grade.
That's a
So
great idea going top down like that.
yeah,
I talk a lot about like the importance, if you can, of getting the boys in sixth grade, so that when they're most of them are still unchanged, they learn the feeling and the experience of matching pitch. Because a lot of times, if you don't get them until eighth grade or seventh grade, and they have begun changing, they don't understand the feeling of matching the pitch and the experience of matching the pitch, and then they just kind of check out. And that's something you want to
well,
avoid. That top down
yes,
approach.
and they also uh, they've been if they've sung at all, they've been singing melody, and
Hmm.
suddenly they're faced with singing some kind of harmony part, which they're not accustomed to.
Yeah.
Now that leads into my comments about my arranging for the changing voice, which is to to try to give the changing voices sort of a central role in the arrangement. I really do like writing for tenor bass. I call it tenor bass, but it's really sort of cambiata new baritone.
Right.
So
So, what are your favorite pieces that you've written for specifically that work well, whether they're SAB or even
yeah,
SATB or whatever, for that age group that you think work really, really well?
right. Well, I've I've recently I've recently taken a new direction with that, and I wrote a collection for tenor bass voices
Did
called
you send me that link?
Music in the Air. Music
Okay,
in the
let's
Air.
see
Yeah,
if I've got it.
yeah.
Uh,
It's
I'm not sure. No.
it's on the Hal Leonard site. Just
Okay.
yeah.
Not sure if I've got that link. I don't think I do. Sorry.
No, it's not.
Okay.
But if you look at it, the collection is called Music in the Air, and it has 5 songs in it, and they're written a little differently. They're not homophonic arrangements. They're more layered pieces so that both parts kind of have a melody,
Hmm.
so it's easier for them to learn that. And if you think about it, a lot of our two-part treble pieces are written this way. So
Hmm.
I thought, well, I wonder if we could give give the guys a chance to sing. All the response I'm getting from people is very positive about that. So I've done that. Music in the Air. Um, I have written some three-part mixed arrangements or sometimes I've written SA parentheses TB, so that like for instance, some of you've done my arrangement of J'entends le moulin, which
Yes,
is
listen. I
it's
heard that at
oh,
adjudication in Alabama and like several times. And did you use that approach that you just described about the boys in that arrangement?
it's the boys do have a little more melodic line, but it's a little bit harder arrangement. But
But it is, but I heard so many awesome, that if you're not familiar with it, you guys, like, this is a great
yeah,
piece that
yeah.
I heard and loved every single time I heard it. And the other piece I keep hearing about, and I don't know if this is appropriate in terms of the male voice conversation right now, I keep hearing about, and that I've heard in the adjudications I've been doing, is this one, Elvito.
Oh yes, right. Well,
Super
it's
popular.
not a. I don't think I have a. I don't think I have a three-part mixed of that. I can't remember. So
Yeah.
it is strictly a treble piece, uh but it has kind of a low part two. So for maybe seventh grade and some unchanged, and Cambiata voices might work pretty
I
well.
want to ask Alden, do we have a lot of questions in the chat? Are you, because I want to gauge the conversation planning here.
Not yet, no.
Okay, so you guys just, if you have questions for Emily or for me, put them in the chat and we'll get to them. So we're going to talk a little bit longer here because it's supposed to be Ask Mr. D and Ask Emily. So if you have questions, shoot them and you can certainly ask them live. So I want to move on to some of your approaches to vocal technique, because a lot of teachers talk about how they struggle with getting a vibrant and energized, appropriate tone for middle school singers, you know, because their voices are small a lot of the times. So what are some of your approaches to help the energy and the vibrancy of the tone and technique?
Well, I was not a singer to start out with, so I I worked on myself personally by taking voice lessons myself, and also studying and taking classes and workshops with you know, really talented people. I will say that number one, knowing your singers and their voices is a really important thing. And um, a lot of times their voices may seem, yeah, their voices are small, and but you have the opportunity to sort of grow those voices. Um, and I have a book called Voice Builders.
I've
And
seen
then
that book.
Rollo Dilworth has a book called Choir Builders, and these are good. These offer a good opportunity to build your sound. Now, you know, really starting out at the year, spending a lot of time exploring our voices and sort of helping them get into their head voice, and then singing simple warm ups to learn the five basic vowels. And you know, you can the voice builders book is set up in a way where you kind of work on tone, on vowel posture, breath, vowels. It's a way it's sequential, like the music literacy materials. Work your way through that. Then consonants, articulators, resonance, harmonic practice. It's just a lot of times they're able to do it in the warm up, but then you get in the music and it sort of all goes out the window. So I remember hearing a choir sing in a concert, and they very carefully sang. The piece was Lamb of God Most Holy, and they very carefully sang Lamb of God. You know, it's just like, oh please. So they just lost it. You know, they weren't able to sustain that that sound through the phrase. So um, once as you're learning the piece of music, you have to kind of create vocalises to to correct your technical vocal problems that you might be having there.
I think a lot of people, I think students need music that makes them excited to sing it, or music that the teacher is so excited to teach that helps the energy level. You know, we're of course working on vocal technique. We're trying to help them to breathe better, and we're helping them to put energy into their initial consonants, like if it's an H or a K, to help improve the energy and clean the tone. But there's nothing bigger or more important than them liking what they're learning, or the teacher loving it so much that they learn to like it. I think the passion is really important in helping the kids create the energy that you're after. And when I've been watching since I retired in May, you know, loving my life, and I'm loving being able to adjudicate festivals and seeing these teachers do incredible stuff. And the thing that I can feel, whether I like the piece or not, is whether they like the piece or not, and whether the teacher has hit the mark with that group of students. I feel like that's such a spiritual piece of the puzzle that sometimes we miss. We get caught up in technique. The last thing I want to ask you before we allow people to ask questions, because it's Ask Mr. D, Ask Emily Crocker, is what is your greatest piece of advice that you would give to a new middle school teacher?
That is a great question, and and sometimes it takes us a long time to kind of figure it out for ourselves. Uh, we lack if we're lacking confidence, and I think most. I mean, every first, second, third year teacher lacks confidence. They just uh, they just do. So, um, number one, be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Know what makes you motivated and interested in what you're doing. Number two, um, be as structured as you possibly can. Have approach the year. Don't go in. I mean, you don't want to be like really Mrs. Grumpy, but you don't have to be everybody's pushover teacher. You can be friendly and fun and laugh with the kids and play games and motivate them and still have a structure and be um, uh, and give them that they're looking for that structure. And if you've got problem children, and we all do, maybe you've got two or three problem children in your class. Well, you've got another 28 who are dying to sing and really want to sing. So don't be distracted by the three that are causing the disruptions or whatever. You may have to work on coming up with a plan to how to deal with them, but think about those kids who really want to be here, be there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
also
yeah, go ahead.
also just the fact of um, doing it every day and giving them a structure. They will middle school kids will go as far as you can take them.
It's
I
true.
mean, they really, and if they feel like you're on their side, and you believe in them, they will do almost anything for you.
It's so true. I was supposed to teach high school. When I did my student teaching, the day before I was to start, I was supposed to be at a high school. That night, the supervisor called and said, "You're not going to do high school. You're going to do middle school." And I was devastated. I was like, I had my whole plan, my whole career worked out, right? And I went to Allen Middle School in Greensboro, North Carolina, and had a great cooperating teacher. And I was doing fine, but she was absent for 3 days, and it was a disaster because she had been standing back, lurking, making sure they acted well. And I fast forward through a master's degree and some staying on a cruise ship for a little bit, and I came back and lucked out and got that job. And I felt like an utter failure, right? For they wanted her, and I wrote a blog post called "So You're Replacing a Legendary Choir Teacher," because I've done it twice and it's really, really hard. And I have to give a shout out to that. I left in May, and the person who is in the job that I was in did exactly and is doing exactly the things you described a few moments ago. He's a well established, very good choral director who did not go in and try to be me, and he's being him. And while he has had a hard year, and I hurt for him because I know how hard it is, he has gotten incredible sounds out of them. He's taken them to a Hawks game and they've sung. They're going to Six Flags. He's just doing him. And that is the best thing, I think, that you said earlier that I 100% agree with. And I appreciate your advice. So I want to open up the floor. We're going to stay as long as we want, as long as you have questions. To anybody who would like to ask a question live, you can certainly come on camera or not and ask it even off camera. Alden, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, there's one. What are your tips for getting a stronger sound from a treble ensemble?
Um, well, I will say that the seems like the pandemic has hurt us all this way. They've all been, they've been zooming too, so that they could be, kind of quiet in their, with their computer or their iPhone or whatever. I would say uh, two things. One is breath and also exploration of the voice, doing exercises that they're able to, do sirens and do sort of get where they're not going to be judged by the accuracy of their tone or their pitch. Just to sing sirens, and then from that move into treble, open vowels like o, ah, ooh, but ooh with a lot of space, and just really sort of push the sound, doing a five note descending pattern. And then also when you're working the range, um, like a ooh, 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 moving up. Do that in a jumping manner. So start, you know, E flat, an E flat triad or something, gradually move up and let them jump to the high notes. It's kind of a bouncing to the high notes. And now I can't sing anymore. I demonstrate this for you, but I'm just I've lost my voice in my old age. But at one time I could sing, and I use and so if you are able to sing and model for your students, do so. Men can sing in falsetto and should. It's a perfectly logical and good way of demonstrating even with your treble groups.
I always did that. I found it very hard for the students to translate the octave.
Yep.
And I was like, that's just an obstacle. Let me remove it.
Yep.
And then when their voices changed, of course, it was easier for me to model for that. Regarding energy and tone for treble choirs, um, you know, one thing that's very important is to teach them to listen to each other, right? I talk about self-assessing and self-correcting. When we're working on ear training in S cubed, sharp singing, flat singing, identifying it, I teach them about listening to each other. And then we talk later about making overtones, because if you can make overtones with each other, the sound's going to, ping, and you don't have to push anything. And I would have students come up, and I used ooh a lot, like you described, and they will stand next to me, and I will have the two of us sing doo, side by side, and we're letting the choir listen to me make overtones with this person, and then they start to learn to listen to each other more and more and more. Those overtones really do help. And they love, their brains awaken, and then they start to be more active in their singing. And that helps the tone to increase in energy without any pushing, because their voices are light and they are quite small at this age.
Yep.
I noticed Jolene Glass wrote about Drunken Sailor. We changed it to "What should we do with a lazy pirate," which I think is fun. But I do like your Dunkin' Donuts thing. Of course, are
Well,
there any other?
one more
Yeah,
thing on the
yeah.
treble. I was thinking like a song like El Vito. It a lot of my songs start at that sort of head voice level on an open vowel. Coda Vito, Vito, Vito. It's a good place to start and really work that sound. So looking for those kinds of pieces. I have another one called um, Gloria Festiva,
Mhm.
which has which is like kind of centered right on that F to C range right there. That's a good easy range for trebles to sing. So
I want to ask people in the group if you are comfortable posting your favorite Emily Crocker arrangements. I see some people it looks like have done that already. So if you're here, check those out. Um, Okay, and if anybody has a question they'd like to ask on camera, just chime in. I know kind of intimidating to do so. But I'm seeing voice builders for better choirs. Yeah, you posted that. Thank you, Alden. She mentioned that earlier. Music in the Air collection for tenor bass. Sheet music is in the chat. Thank you, Rihanna, for posting that. Oh, and Susan also posted music in the air. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Kimberly Jeter is waving to you. Kimberly, it's great to have you here.
Hi, Kimberly.
Yeah, do you know Kimberly?
I do. I had a fun day with Kimberly a few years back.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Rena, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly. Would you like to just ask your question real quick?
Sure, it's Rihanna.
Rihanna.
So I'm a senior and I am getting ready for some job interviews for middle school. And I was wondering if you had any tips for job interviews as well as for sample lessons if they get to that step.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to jump in first. You know, tonight, Forbidden Pattern, the game is free in my TPT store. Go grab that. I think Alden's posted that. Just grab it. That's a great sample lesson. I show you how to do it. And I think it would be a killer if you got there. And my advice for you in the interview is just to be yourself. And that's, I think Emily said that earlier, you know, it's just be yourself. And when you are yourself, you're going to find the right spot, that works for you. And I know for myself in my own career, I always lucked out in that way. And I think it's just because if it's the right fit, it's the right fit, and you're going to land where you're supposed to land. Emily, do you have advice?
Yeah, I agree. Just be yourself. Try to find out as much as you can about the program you're applying for, so that you don't go in with a kind of a lesson that it's kind of off base for the group that's going to. I observed a job interview one time, and just make sure you don't do things that might distract from your teaching. We interviewed a guy who snapped his fingers through the whole sight reading, and I just found it completely distracting. So the little things like that can get you off your target. So use good technique, but don't do things that are kind of distracting uh, or controlling, I guess I should say.
And I agree with you about finding out, Rihanna, about the school, so that when you are in the interview, you've done some due diligence. You know what's happening in the building. Like, look at how large the school is, how many students. Find out information about what the school's all about. So you go in, and after you've done your part, you can ask some questions, because the truth is, it's also an interview for you, because you want to find the right spot for you. So thank you for that question. You have anything else to ask us?
Thank you so much for answering. I just looked at the TPT website. I got the 1 month middle school for free, but the Forbidden Pattern, the lesson one, it's showing up as $15. I clicked the wrong thing.
No, it's a new version that I just uploaded today. It's a Google Slide version. So you're looking at the old version. The Google Slide version, let me see, Alden, maybe if you post that link there again in the chat with the QR code, and then she can find that. And it'll show up as the free version. It should. And if you have trouble, you email me at inthemiddleofmrd@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Anybody else have a question for Miss Crocker, who I'm so grateful is here tonight, or for me before we shut this down? We are so thankful that you all have spent your time here. I'm grateful for Alden. Thank you for keeping us safe and for helping my PTSD on the Zooms. Every time I do it, I'm always like the anxiety is going up. I'm like, please let us be safe and let it just go and help people. We have Chrissy Carey Miller in May, and make sure you're on my email list, in the middle of Mr. D at gmail.com. And she'll be she's still in the classroom. She taught public school and retired, and now she's teaching private school. And I asked her to be a part of the show. Like, I like to do the first Thursday of the month. And she was willing to come, even though she would have just finished a musical rehearsal, because the musical opens the next day. That's how dedicated this woman is. And I was like, there's no way that we're doing that. Like, I know what that's like. So how would the next Thursday work? So we're going to do the second Thursday. And then somebody asked who the Alabama teacher is, and I don't want to say. In July, just come and find out. Like, she's, I would say, she's in her early 30s. She is just cranking it out in ways that I just can't even believe. Like, I was so blown away. And I know that she's going to be on the national stage at some point if she wants to be. That's all I know. And I just want to ask her what she's doing and how she's doing it, because the music and the sound from those kids was remarkable. But more importantly, the dynamic between her and the students, like, they wanted to sing for her in ways that only happen when the right person is in front of the right group. And that it was magical. Of course, Greg Gilpin in June, and I have a history with Greg Gilpin that I want to share that night, that I'm so grateful that he crossed my path. And then, of course, the choir queen will be here in August, Jody Koch. Thank you again for being here. We're going to shut it down, Ms. Crocker. It's an honor. Thank you.
Everybody.
So excited that you came. Thank you. You guys have a good night. All right. I guess some people are hanging out. Maybe they want to ask a question. No, it's okay. All right, Alden, thank you again. Appreciate it so much. It's a long day and you're doing track.
Yes, 6 weeks, and I'm done with year one.
Oh my God. And you're hanging in there okay?
I am, yeah. It's we're doing Beauty and the Beast next year.
Okay.
So I got
All
Beauty
right.
and the Beast, and I'm teaching a college level theory class next year. So lots of coffee and yeah.
Well, and I know you have immersed yourself so
Thanks.
hard and wonderfully.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I can't wait to see what you do,
Thank
like you're already doing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And
Appreciate
thank
it.
you
Have you
again.
thought
I don't
about
wanna-
Have you thought about Maria Ellis? That's a good one too. The choir nerd. Or have you heard of Maria
I
Ellis?
have, I
She's
think.
she was at ACDA.
Okay. You know what? I welcome any guidance, and I'm looking for some younger people who are doing things that are appealing to people. So I welcome anything. You can send me a list of people, and I'm just going to reach out and see what we can find, and people that you think would be helpful. Yep. I'm into
Awesome.
it. All right.
Do you know Sean? Do you know
Okay.
Sean Ivory? Do you know Sean Ivory at all? Ivory Caldwell.
No.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he was my teacher in high school. He's mainly a high school teacher, but if you look her up, it's a girl conductor on Instagram. So
Yes, I've seen her. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. If you don't mind, just when you have a chance, and I know your life's crazy and it's not urgent, just send me a list of ideas, and then I'll reach out. If they say yes, they say yes, and if they don't, it's fine. People who are supposed to be in front will be in front of here, and we'll ask and learn and grow.
Cool. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again.
You